yesterday, of course, was the budget. Did you follow us to Doncaster? Did you enjoy that programme last night? I very much did. I have to say there was a bit of a mixed reaction from the audience. Hey, by the way, speaking of audiences, if you were watching last time Kevin was on, this has just popped into my head, so forgive me.
You checked, didn't you?
Everyone, this is very rare that I admit this, but I was wrong. You were right, Kevin. I was wrong. The audience, when we were together in Uxbridge, I said they were in support of Boris Johnson. You said they were not. You were wrong. You were right. I was wrong. They were not massively in favour of Boris Johnson. Anyway, I digress. Back to Doncaster. They were split pretty much on the budget last night, but I don't really think that there was anyone truly jumping for joy in that audience and amongst you guys at home. And when it comes to the fallout from the budget, there's been lots of criticism for some of the measures in it. Not least, by the way, when it comes to the tax, Daniel Moylan, because so many people will be pulled. I mean, there's an estimate in 2027, just about the millions of people that will be pulled into paying a tax at 20p, and then again, millions more, about 3 million more, pulled into the 40p rate. There was nothing on thresholds or anything like that, so people will be feeling very much poorer.
Well, we knew there would be nothing on thresholds because this was all set last year or the year before that these wouldn't change, and that's why nothing new was announced about them. Yeah, this has the fancy name, and what economists give this the fancy name of fiscal drag. Mm-hmm. Fiscal drag. You get dragged in because of inflation into higher tax bands, and of course, because inflation's so high, even more people than expected are being dragged into this. And of course, it's going to hurt some people, and they're going to realise that there is no free money, and you're going to have to make a contribution. If you want all these things free at point of use, then they're going to have to be paid for out of taxation. And I think it might even help the country confront the fact that, in my view, we're spending too much on public services. We could more than we can afford, and people will see it in their pocket.
So you think it's a good thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing, but I think it's a clarion call. It's a wake-up call. It's for people to make people I think it's a bad thing, but it'll make people think, how much is going out of my pocket and what am I getting for it? And I think that's a conversation we need to have in this country.
Kevin?
I'm fascinated to hear that Daniel thinks we spend too much money on public services in this country. Because, unfortunately, I had to work very late last night, Michelle, so I haven't seen the show yet, and I'm going to watch it back in Doncaster. But I imagine most folks around you last night probably don't think we spend too much on public services. I think the budget, the biggest thing for me is I think the priorities were wrong, and the pension focus, when most people will see effectively, less money in their pockets. And I think it's a challenge, let's watch this. I'm going to be very fair to the Chancellor and the Prime Minister. At last we saw, which we haven't seen for a while, some vaguely competent, emotionally intelligent people speaking at the top of the Tory party, with no offence to Daniel's old boss, Boris. But I think the picture they portrayed yesterday, which Hunt did very fluently, is just a long way removed from the lives that lots of folk are living.
Who's this getting in touch? Dan has said, Danny has said, having to pay 40% on your rate of fares. He said, no, you've got that wrong. What it is you don't really start paying. So people are confusing many different things, because what people are saying is they thought it had gone from 40 grand to 60 grand, but you're conflating the pensions. What the 40 grand to the 60 grand was, it was all about the maximum amount of money that you could put into your pension. Previously, 40 a year going up to 60, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And now when it comes to the pensions, Kevin just alluded to it then, there's been a lot of criticism, not least as well because one of the measures, Daniel, was basically you can put as much into your pension as you want going forward. Labour have said that they're going to reverse that almost instantly when they come into power. What do you think to that measure?
Well, of course, it was Labour who was calling for this to be done for doctors only a few months ago. The Chancellor's done it for doctors and other people as well, because it isn't just doctors who are giving up working early. Because they run into this very high pension tax if they earn more than a certain amount. So they stop working in their 50s because they've hit the cap. It was always a Gordon Brown cock-up to have this system in the first place, because we actually need a country, we are a country that needs more savings. And we should be encouraging savings. And what's actually been happening is that people who have not been able to put money into their pension have been diverting it into buying up houses and flats that they've been letting out. They're usually bad landlords, competing with first-time buyers and creating the private rental sector. The other thing, if I'm very quick, is the idea that you get a tax break on putting your money into your pension. That's true. But there's no tax on it. Is idiotic. because you pay tax on your pension, on all of it, including your own capital that's being withdrawn, when you take it out. You can have a tax-free lump sum, but on the great majority of it, you are paying tax. So the Treasury gets the money, even if it lets you off at the beginning to encourage the saving, it takes it off you when you draw the pension later in life.
Kevin?
I think the general point I really want to say in response to all of Daniel's comments are the things he's alluding to, they only affect, and this change, a tiny number of people, right? The number of people watching and listening to this show tonight who are going to say, well, you know, we're quids in now, guys, because last year we could only put 40 grand into our private pensions and now it's gone up to 60. It's a tiny fraction of people. And those who could anyway, is a very small number of people who will benefit. And what Labour said before, to be very precise to Daniel, was that for doctors leaving the NHS because there was no incentive for the highest paid to keep putting money in, they wanted a different arrangement. That's what Wes Treating said, just like the judiciary have. But the big picture is most people will not be able to take advantage of this, and it's £1 billion going to the wrong priority. And I think that's a very fair critique that we heard.
It's not £1 billion, that's this year. You get most of the money back. It's only because you're looking at 1 year in isolation. You will get most of the money back when people are drawing their pensions. You'll see it flooding back into the Treasury. Leaving aside the lump sum, Kevin, I do know that.
Yeah.
But leaving aside that, you will pay tax at your marginal rate when you take it out, which could be 40 or 45%, depending on your total income.
But I think, Daniel, again, you know, that's a benefit down the line. And it's like
not far down the line, because most people are close to retirement, affected by this.
It's just like the childcare provisions that will come in several years. And the people in the country now are really struggling. And I think they just want to see, they don't need £1 billion benefit going to the best off. I mean...
no, it's not £1 billion going to the best off. You're misrepresenting it, Kevin.
But I'm not.
You are misrepresenting it, and you're looking at it purely in short term, and you haven't addressed this point. We are a country that needs savings. Now, if people are going to save, you're going to look to the country to provide savings for investment in the future, not borrowing it all from abroad, then, of course, the savings are going to come from people who've got money.
Yes, but we're talking... Most people are nowhere near the incomes or the affluence.
There are other things in the budget...
That's my point.
There are other things in the budget that affect all parts of society. This is one necessary and valuable measure that you should be praising because it helps lay the foundation for a successful economy.
See how long it lasts.
Why does it matter, Kevin, that there's only a small percentage of people that will be impacted by this? Because what I found quite fascinating on any of these things is if it's just a small percentage of people at the bottom or in the middle, no one cares. But as soon as it becomes a small percentage of people at the top, then you get the critique that you're kind of giving now. Why does it matter how many people will be impacted by the measure?
Right. So your question is, when people at the bottom are affected, no one cares? I didn't understand that, sorry.
What I'm saying is, your pushback that people are giving is you're saying, well, there's only a few people at the top.
Yeah.
So you're pushing back on that matter. But actually, there's only a few different people perhaps affected by whatever measure. Why does the quantity of people only seem to come into play when it's the top end?
OK, well, I don't know if I'd agree on how you framed that. My point is, where we are going through, and it's a number of bodies saying publicly today about the amount of time that people's incomes are going to be down, there's cost of living. If any government really wants to try and do their best for the country, put money in the direction of those most in need.
Dan has been in touch again saying, Michelle, this is what Dan is saying, having to pay 40% tax on 37.5 thousand a year is obscene when you can earn millions and only pay 45%. But Christine has almost instantly sent an email, and it just counters this, because what Christine is saying is one of the most worrying things that she thinks of all this is just how few people actually understand the tax system and the pension system. Because, Danny, that's not how it works. No. So you have about, I think it's 12, is it 12,500 these
roughly,
days?
That's roughly no tax.
So you pay no tax at all on your first 12 and a bit thousand. Then you pay 20% for a period. What's that cut off?
On the next 37 or so.
Up to 50, and then it's only just over 50,000. Well, let's round it to 50,000. It's 50,000 plus that you then pay the 40% on that bit, and then once you get to, I think it's 150, that's when you pay the 45 to that bit. So, yes, I get it. Some of these things are complicated, and Christine says that actually when you have these kind of budgets and these conversations, especially around pensions and taxes and pensions and stuff, I think so many people do get kind of confused and they just go, I won't pay attention, or I'll forget about that, and I'm not at retirement age. And But actually, it would pay for everyone to make sure that they do understand, even if it's just the very basics of the whole pension stuff, because actually you get old before you know it, don't you? Time flies.
Can I say one thing, Michelle?
You may.
Is to Daniel's point about the future now. The billion quid, which is relevant because that's the sum, you could... 250,000 people could have had £4,000, or 500,000 people £2,000. Not those right at the top. You know, that's how it could have been done differently.
So the ones right at the top don't get the money. But the money goes into the pension fund.
Yes, but it's ultimately
It isn't like the Chancellor is standing there saying, here's a big tax rebate you can go and spend.
But you know that
He's
ultimately...
saying, here is money that's not being taken from you. It's going into a pension fund, which is going to be presumably invested in the sorts of things that we need built in this country.
But it's the nation's profit and loss, effectively, Daniel.
No, it's not.
It is.
No, you're making that up.
I'm not making
because you're
it up
confused.
at all. I'm not confused. I know all this stuff very well. It affects me.
Well, I'll leave you at home to be the judge of that one.
Well,
one
I've never
says
got
it's
near
misunderstanding it, the other one says he isn't.
pension.
I'll leave you to decide which one you agree with. Now,